how's it going? It's Jessie from Jessie Marie Does Stuff here on FlossTube, and I am back with an update. Finally. Yeah, it's been a little while. But before we get into it, today is Thursday, February 27th, 2020, and this is a channel mostly about cross-stitch. I do talk about some books, especially this year. I also talk about some knitting, and life stuff usually gets thrown in as well. So if you are a new viewer, I hope that all of that sounds interesting enough, and I hope you stick around, enjoy, subscribe, all that fun stuff. If you're a returning viewer, thank you ever so much for coming back. I hope that you've been well during my absence. And I appreciate you for sticking with me, because I know it's been a little inconsistent so far this year. That's something that I hope to rectify in the not so distant future, but I'm also not going to hold my breath because life has a way of mucking everything up. Anyway, so that is the intro, done and dusted. It might have taken 8 tries, that's fine. So before I start getting into the stitchy stuff, I want to talk about why it's been so long. And the reason is basically Thor. He had a health scare. Scare feels like too small a word, but we had a really scary couple of weeks there. Yeah, it was a lot in a very short period of time, and so I just wasn't able to film. So that's really what it boils down to. Things seem to be on the up and up. I bet that if you're listening to this with headphones, you can hear him snoring. The sun is coming through the windows. So my living room is like right over there, and the sun is coming through, and his favorite spot is right in the sunshine. So he is snoring happily in the sun. He may make an appearance, but at the very least, at the end of this video, I'm going to run through as quickly as I can sort of what all went down, and just kind of give you guys an update on Thor. I know that several of you are his biggest fans. Some of you, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I know that some of you come and watch this channel for Thor cameos. It's okay. I get it. He's adorable. So I'm going to do sort of a Thor update, but that's going to be at the end. So we'll do stitchy stuff, and we're going to talk about some books. And then I'll do the Thor update so you guys can see him, and sort of bring you up to speed on what happened if you weren't watching everything kind of unfold on Instagram, because I did post, at least at the height of things, I did post on Instagram. So anyway, so there's that. Okay, so what do we have to talk about? I've got a whole bunch of whips. I've worked on a whole bunch of different things in the last month, and it has been almost exactly a month since my last video went up. So yeah, I need to get the ball rolling on that again. So I've got quite a few whips to show you. 2 new starts, 0 actual finishes, but I've had page finishes, so plural, since last time, which is great. I've got some plans. Since today is the 27th, we did Whip Go draws this morning, and so I can talk to you guys about my Whip Go projects for March, which is fun. I have just the tiniest amount of stash. 5 books, but we're going to call it 3 because 3 of those books becomes a trilogy. So a trilogy, another book, and then another book. I've read a whole trilogy since I last talked to you guys, so we'll talk about all of that. And then we'll do the Thor update. And I think that that's pretty much everything. I have knit, but to be honest, not much. So not worth showing. Okay, let's get into some projects, huh? I'm so excited to show you guys some of these things. So excited. Okay, so I did watch my last update video because I had to refresh my memory and figure out where and when I was at that point. And so I did happen to see that in that video I was working on Leah Gronow 1872. And I had a few hundred stitches to get, and I did not accomplish it. Filming days take a lot out of me, And so I didn't get to stitch much that day. I think I carried it into the next morning a little bit, and I still just did not reach my goals on this, but that's how it goes. I love this project. It's not the project's fault. It's purely me. Anyway, so this is Leah Gronow, 1872 by Merry Wind Farm. Hashtag party like it's 1872. That's the hashtag for Emily C and I. I love this piece. And I wanted to show you guys the threads because they're gorgeous. So it's charted in Gentle Art Sampler wools, but I subbed for just sampler threads, so the cotton threads. And it's just this gorgeous color palette. The only true change that I made is that this here is supposed to be Buckeye Scarlet, but it is geranium. And you can see that it's a pretty reddy pink. So it works as a substitution. So that is my thread palette. I just thought that I would show you that. I am stitching this on a 32 count Belfast in Vintage Meadow Rue from Lakeside Linens. Yo, what's going on with Lakeside? I'm like itching for some more Lakeside Linens, and it's just so hard to come by. Yeah, anyway, so here is where I got to. Yeah, I didn't do a whole lot. If you have recently watched my January update, then the only change that you'll notice here is that I did a little bit more greenery, but like hardly anything. I barely stitched on this for its rotation in January, and I'm just so disappointed. So I'm hoping that this is going to come back. I'm hoping to be able to squeeze it in, though I haven't the slightest idea of when that might be. Anyway, it's beautiful. I love it. I cannot wait to get into it more. It's gorgeous. Okay, so not everything's going to be in order here because several things I've worked on multiple times. Whatever, it's fine. It was supposed to be the 29th. However, the 29th was a bad day. And so I didn't start this until the 30th. Virtual Stitchers is having a leap day new start, or a leap into a new start or something, in which you have a new start on the 29th of each month. I have no interest in 12 new starts, plus all the other new starts that I've had so far this year. So I started one project with multiple blocks. So I'll start a new block each month. And so that is Anniversaries of the Heart by Blackbird Designs. So this is block 1, and it's the Snow Garden. And I put my bully minder on here. So I was really excited to start this. I really needed this piece. It was therapy for me. It was absolute therapy in, like, really one of my worst days. Okay, so the color palette on this block is so much more muted than the rest, but let me show you. These are all of the called for threads, and it's a mix of Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works. And it's just a bunch of muted things. So when I show you my progress, I've stitched 3 different colors, but they all look the same because they are light khaki and linen by Weeks Dye Works and parchment from Gentle Arts. And they're all kind of off-whitey colors. So it's not going to look like 3 different colors, but trust me, it is. My fabric is a 40 count Newcastle linen in almond by Silk Weaver. It's more pink than you're getting. It's got like a pinky undertone to it. But for some reason, colors like this never really show through quite right. But that's all right. I'll be honest, when I started this, I was like, I'm not entirely sure that I can start this. I'm not entirely sure that this whole series is going to fit on my fabric. I am having to use a much shorter top border than I would have ever wanted. But what are you going to do? Like, I wasn't waiting for a new piece of fabric I picked this out specifically for this project. Like, I just had to find a way to make do. So when I have this in my frame, you can see here, this crease right here, that is where it's folded into my frame. And so I have just like no margin. So stitching on the top is it's a little strenuous. Anyway, so I got started and I only worked on this for the one day, I think, maybe 2 days. And can you see that kind of? Yeah, I mean, it's hard to see because they are very soft shades. I'm stitching this 1/2 on the 40 count. That's a fuzzy. I should have looked this fabric over a little bit more before I bought it, because unless this is the one they dyed for me, there are some like blown out blue dye spots kind of all over this fabric. Maybe you can't see them, but it'll be fine. I'm not super worried about it. Anyway, I really loved working on this. I loved it. And I am looking forward to getting further into it. Yeah, gorgeous. So I made sure to get across the top and down the side here so that when I start my February block, I don't have to count too far. It's already taken care of for me. And that is especially important here in February, since I start the February block on the 29th, and that's the end of the month. My intention is to give this project the last few days of the month. So like from the 29th through the end of the month, February is the only one that stops right there. So I needed to be sure that I had enough time to be able to get to my block, which I do, no problem. So there is Anniversaries of the Heart. And if I back up, the stitching totally disappears. It's like a magic act. That's awesome. No before and afters on new starts. Okay. Next is In This Moment. And I've worked on this a lot of different times. And I've worked on it a lot in amongst those different times. So watch out, big progress coming at you. This is In This Moment by Heaven and Earth Designs, artwork by Jeremiah Ketner. And this is my Mika McKenna. And when you last saw her, I was a little under halfway, I think, through this page here, this hair page, excuse me. So I finished that page, and then I did this page, which is everybody's favorite, and then I started on the next. Yeah. So a lot of progress has been made, but it took a lot of days. My aim is to only give this project 14 days, and I think I've given it like 22 days, I think, here in February, minus a couple. Yeah, a lot. I've worked on this a lot. So that would explain why there's that much progress. So this is on a 25 count cream Lugana from Zweigart, and I'm in the full coverage mode, I guess, because I just want to work on her. So I'll pan up. You will have seen page 6. I finished that earlier this year. Then page 12 there is the one that I was working on. Gorgeous hair. And then page 18, which is just kind of perfect that this happens to be page 18. 18 and up. This is our PG-13 R-rated page. Maybe? Yeah, R-rated. And it's gorgeous. I love how that came together. Yeah. She's something, isn't she? She's really special. And then I got a start on page 24 here. So you can see I'm a little bit into page 24, which will be swan neck down to like base of swan head. Let me bring this cover page back. So it ends like right here. And I will get the rest of this arm. And yeah. So that's what I'll get here with page 24. Yeah, I did a lot, but over a lot of days. A lot more days than I would normally. A lot more days than I would normally give to this project, and a lot more days than it would normally take for me to get to this point. I think I've done a little over 10,000 stitches here in February, which is a lot, now that I say that out loud. But that should have taken me, what, 17 days maybe, and it took an extra week on top of that, something like that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It went a little bit slower, but that's life. That's the way life goes. So I'm really, really enjoying this. I've been asked the question a few times if I'm using Pattern Keeper, and I am using Pattern Keeper. I'm not really the best person to get a review on Pattern Keeper. I love it. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoy it. But I see how that app would be absolutely revolutionary for those who stitch cross-country. I am still working in blocks and parking. And so it's great because I don't have to search for symbols anymore. I'm not looking for symbols. I spend no time doing that because it just lights it all up for me. So that's great. I make fewer mistakes. And so that's great. It slows me down because I have to highlight, and I was never highlighting when I was using paper chart. So, you know, it's kind of back and forth. The other thing is that it's just a little cumbersome. I've got to have my Kindle Fire sitting on my stand, and so if I have to flip to the back, I take my Kindle off, I take my phone off, I take my highlighters off, although I'm not really using them anymore. So, and then flip to the back. Whereas before, my needle minders held my paper chart in place, and so I could just flip, no problem. So, I don't know. It's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other. But I do like not having to search for symbols. That's pretty great. Yeah, I'm enjoying that aspect of it. If you're on the fence about trying Pattern Keeper, there's a trial. So give it a try. Like, what's the damage? No sweat there. And if you stitch cross country, then it will revolutionize your life. I know some people say that they've stitched 4 times as fast as they used to because they're using it. Since I don't cross country and I don't even like cross country, I wish I did. I really wish I did. But since I don't get the full benefit of Pattern Keeper. Anyway, I'm excited to see what she does in the future with that app. So here's where I got. Let's see. I have completed 5 of the national parks with Full Coverage Fanatics. So Full Coverage Fanatics has a year-long sale this year where you stitch 4,000 stitches for each of 25 U.S. national parks. So tier 1 for me is done. Let's see, what else? 20 in 20 challenge, also through Full Coverage Fanatics. That's done. I was not expecting to finish that in February. Not at all. Especially not with what happened at the beginning of February. But nonetheless, that challenge is done. 3 page finishes so far this year. Crazy pants. But I'm all here for it. So I think I have 12 pages left to get to my goal. So I'm 20% of the way through my goal within the first 2 months of the year. I think as of now, I'm projected to finish the 100K in October, if I keep up with this pace. Wild. So anyway, I'm really, really excited about that progress and about her, and she's gorgeous. And now I have very few things to look forward to in this design. That's the only downside to getting to the goods, is that there's nothing to look forward to. There's still a few things, like I'll be excited when I get to this page here because it's my first bottom page. So that'll be fun. Plus completing the top row, that'll be fun. The swan's heads and the lotus will be fun. I guess even her torso, though that's not as exciting as her upper torso. So yeah, I'm running out of exciting things, which is okay because it means that I wouldn't say nearing the finish line. I'm not even at halfway yet, which is a little depressing. But I'm getting there. I am getting there. Very close, like 1.5% to the 50% mark. Very excited. Okay, so I think that is it for In This Moment. You're going to have a rather lengthy montage following my spiel here of my before and afters on each of these pages. Okay, so my next project to show you is my living in this Love You More Studio Co. book sleeve / project bag. We'll go with it because it has definitely been repurposed as a project bag. And living in here is my Halloween sampler by Cottage Garden Samplings. As you may know, I'm working on this piece roughly twice a month to coincide with the Alphabet Soup Challenge with Semi-Sane Stitchers. That is, so it's you do the ABCs, and each month you have to pick a project, or each 2-week period. Gosh, I am really botching this. Every 2-week period, you pick a project that coincides with the letter of the 2 weeks. So we are currently in E, and so you would need to work on an E project. Either the title of the design starts with E, or the design company name starts with E, or the designer's name starts with E. The only exception to that is if you are doing a true alphabet sampler, not a sampler with an alphabet, but an alphabet sampler like this one, where each of the letters corresponds to something specifically. So A is for abracadabra, B is for broom, C is for creepy, etc., etc. I'm going to try not to explain that every time I pull this out, but I know it's been a month, and so I just thought I would go over that real quick. Anyway, so I worked on this a few times since I last showed it to you. And yeah, it's going well. I'm enjoying it. It's nice to pull it out for just a little bit and to sort of knock out a word and continue on my way, but without having to spend a whole lot of time on it. I'm enjoying that aspect of it as well. So this is on a 32 count Belfast in Tombstone by Coloring Cotton. This was from the Halloween Mystery Box 2019. And it is this beautifulness, a soft bluey gray. And so here's where I'm up to. D is for Dracula. So the D period ended Tuesday. And E started this yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. So I'll get to this in the next couple of weeks to get E is for Eerie done. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I have stopped paying attention to stitching 1X at a time because my Blackbird is just not, it's not variegated enough for it to be worth it. Neither is my Raven. You still kind of get the green hints out of Raven, which is great. But I'm just not paying attention to 1X at a time. That's fine. If it's not worth it, then why? So I still think this is gorgeous, and I'm really enjoying it. I really wanted to do the little ghosty here, but it kind of goes with G is for goblins, which is right here underneath, so I saved that for later. I'll get to that in March, I think. Maybe not. Maybe not. But anyway, so there is there is my Halloween sampler. Okay, next I worked on something kind of unexpected, but I blame that on the cross-stitch challenges that rule my life this year. So this year, I'm sort of prioritizing as follows. Daily 30. I basically format the order in which I work on things on the Daily 30 group, which is a closed group. They are not currently accepting new members. I'm sorry. Following that is Magical Stitches. I am still playing along with Magical Stitches. So I'm basically sticking to the homework, the stitching homework, and the stitching extra credit. I haven't been able to wrap my head around the other bigger things, which is okay because I haven't been able to wrap my head around much in the last month. Who knows? Maybe later on in the year I'll pick it up and continue on. And then Semi-Sane and Full Coverage Fanatics and those other ones. So I say all of that because I pulled this out because of Daily 30. Within the last week and a half, we have needed a project with a frog. This is all I got that I could find. And so we have one frog going in, and we have one frog over here, and I think that's all of the frogs. Probably all of them. So I worked on this, and I am in the midst of the mermaid block there. This is on a 40 count Newcastle linen in Country Mocha from Zweigart. I'm doing the DMCs, and I reduced my goal from finishing this to 5 blocks. So 5 blocks, which will leave me with 3 to finish up early 2021. Yeah, there's just no way. We're here at the end of February. I'm not halfway through this mermaid block. There's no way I'm going to finish this year. I don't know if I'm going to get 5 blocks done this year. Just because of, in this moment, it's taken up all my time. But anyway, so we'll pull these parked threads down. So yeah, I worked on this for, I think, 1 day. And I focused mostly on the ship here that has sunk. So these sails and the ship itself. And then I started on the mermaid's lower half. I also finished up this color of the water. So that is Halloween at Hawthorne Hollow. Okay, just 2 more projects. And this next one, pretty exciting. I don't think that I ever talked about this with you guys here on FlossTube, but I had always had it in the plans to start this project. So this is Promise of Spring by Cottage Garden Samplings. This is Songbird's Garden. Excuse me, Miss Obama. Scoot her over a little bit. Number 4. There we go. So this is Promise of Spring featuring the American Robin and the tulips. Gorgeous, right? I love this one. Such happy colors, so bright and rich colors. Even more so in the DMC. I just thought that with Hope, former First Lady Michelle Obama, kind of fitting, right? So the reason that I started this was for 2 birthday sales. And they have the longest hashtags in the history of foreverdom. But one of them is for Courtney, the New Mexico Stitching Demon. Her hashtag was the demon is a spring baby birthday sale, I think. And then Aussie Stitcher, Belinda, I'm not going to be able to remember your hashtag, but it was something to the effect of work on a birthday sale for either something you started for somebody else or something you started for Belinda's birthday. And so I started this for Courtney's birthday, but I had kind of always intended on starting it on Belinda's birthday, because Belinda's birthday is also my grandma's birthday, and so I just kind of like to commemorate that day. And I will forever remember Belinda's birthday for that. So I definitely wanted to start something for her birthday. So it just worked out nicely. The only the only thing is that I started this on February 9th. And Belinda's birthday is February 22nd. I started this early because I needed it for a challenge much earlier than I had intended on starting it. But anyway, so I am doing the DMC conversion, which is what I intend to do for this entire 12-part series. And the conversion leaves a little bit to be desired, if I'm honest. It's okay, and I'm going to stick with it. I'm like full speed ahead. I'm not changing anything. I'm not ripping anything out. But if it were me, I would look at some softer shades. These are bold colors, very bold. On top of that, I think that this, yeah, so this was done on 36 count 1/2, and mine is on a 32 count 2/2, so it's just that much more depth of color. So anyway, so that is what it looks like. You've seen enough. So I started this on the 9th, and I think I've worked on it 6 days now, which is kind of funny, but I'll talk about that here in a second. The fabric I'm using is, I had a hard time pulling this one. 32 count Belfast in Seaside from Hand Dyed Fabrics by Stephanie. I had a hard time because I had this fabric pegged for Barbara Anna's Something Wicked for literally years now, and I pulled it out of that kit for this because it was the only thing that I had that wasn't else earmarked for something else that I plan on starting this year. It pained me to do it, but I did it. And so here's where I got to. Okay, so I'm going to show you something a little funny. Okay, so you see those 4 hearts there? If I get up close on that chart, whoever model stitched this, maybe it was Vinny herself or her model stitcher, they must have run out of Weeks Dye Works grids. Or they forgot to go back and fix that because it's unfinished up here, which I just think is funny. I found that super amusing. It's charted to be 4 in a circle, but I just thought that was funny. I definitely started this for Heart Week in Daily 30 for those of you who are in that group. Hearts and 4 repeating. Yeah. So anyway, so this is where I got to in 6 days. I have another of these Cottage Garden Samplings Songbirds Garden Series charts started. You may remember. Have Faith, that I started December 31st, 2018. I have 7 stitches in that piece. And I have 6 days and close to 3,000 stitches in this one. Whoops. But that's the way it goes. This one fit some challenges, and so I was happy to work on it. Now this is not going to join my active whips, so to speak. This is going to go in the box of whips to be brought out at a later date. If I get my goal on Have Faith, which is 5 days effort, then this will come back for another 5-day rotation. But in the meantime, this is where I got to, and now it's going to go away. Isn't this fabric gorgeous? Yeah, I'm a huge fan of the fabric. But it's a good thing that this fabric is pretty rich because these colors are so bold. So bold. Especially this one here. Like this yellow and orange and maroon, which I'm not mad at. It's so rich and autumnal, more than spring. But it's still pretty. I still like it. And I really like this purple one. If it were me, I would have picked a different purple than 3740, I think is what this one is. And that is the substitute for Purple Haze, Weeks Dye Works Purple Haze, which I don't know what that looks like. But anyway, I would have picked something different to go next to the 3834. But it's still pretty. And I love the way that these are stylized. I learned my lesson from Forever and Ever. Forever and Ever, I went and did the lettering super fast. And then I was sad because I didn't get to do that anymore. So I'm saving the lettering for later. I didn't rush up and take care of that immediately because I love that Gothic lettering. So that's my new start. No before and afters on new starts. Okay, so I have one last whip to show you. And that is what's currently on my frame. So, Rose Fairy by Joan Elliott. Yep. I worked on her this morning for a challenge. I finished the challenge. She's still on my frame. We'll talk about that here in a second. So this is Rose Fairy, my oldest whip. She'll be 6 in July. So I have a kindergartner. And she's being done on 28 count Lugana in confetti by Picture This Plus. So here's where I'm up to. I worked on her for a few days in January for daily 30 or 30 minutes a day. And then I had the grand planned, emphasis on the grand and unrealistic plan of doing 30 minutes a day every day for the month of February. And so that was to hopefully get me to the finish on this project. But also to participate with Embroidery.com's Love to Stitch challenge that they run every February. I guess that was sort of the basis for Daily 30 and how sort of that all was born. Anyway, so on February 4th, I stitched 0 stitches whatsoever. 0. So I wasn't out at that point. You had like four apology days or something like that. But I fell off the bandwagon pretty quick and never jumped back on. Just too much going on in life to try to stress about that. So I fell off the bandwagon and I didn't work on this for a good couple of weeks. Pulled this out for the challenge this morning. I did my 200 stitches, which is what I needed. And I realized, first of all, the stitching on this side is done. No more cross stitch. I still have some back stitch, obviously. Quite a bit of back stitch to do. But the cross stitch is done. So the cross stitch is done on the left side and the top. Everything north of the middle line in the vertical is done. She's rolled up, but it's done. So all I have left is the stitching on this page. And what that amounts to is 2 flowers, some green stuff, and a couple more flower buds. I guess 3 flowers because there's that one there. So I had a rough look at my pattern. I think that's about 500 cross stitches. And then I have back stitch and a smattering of beads, very few beads. A ton of back stitch, sure, but then just a few beads. Do y'all know where I'm going with this? I think I'm going to try to finish her tomorrow. I am so over this project. I am over it. I am over it to the point where I don't like it. I don't want to feel like that about a whip. I don't want to feel like that. She needs to be finished. So I think that I may just try to crank it out and get it done tomorrow. There's just so little left. I don't like my stitches 2/2 on Lugana. I really love stitching on linen. I don't love stitching on even weaves. I do it for full coverage, but not for anything else. So some of my stitches look... of course, you can't see that from here, which is the ideal situation. But nonetheless, when I'm up close to it, I'm like, oh gosh, so disappointing. And it's just been languishing for too long. I have finished so many other much larger projects in the time since I've started this. And I'm just over it. I'm done. I want her finished. I want to be able to gift her in May to a certain little somebody. And so I want her done. I'm done. Ready to be done. So I'm going to try to finish her tomorrow. Saturday morning at the latest. Can I do it? Do you guys think I can? I have a few more things that I'm supposed to be doing here at this 11th hour of February. I never worked on my WIPCO projects for February. I have a couple more challenges that I would like to sort of dust off and finish up. I kind of want to put all that to the side to get her done instead. I think the other thing I'm feeling is I haven't had a legitimate finish yet this year. I don't like it. I'd like to get some finishes. This whole idea of getting 20 finishes in 2020 sounds really great. So I need to get a move on because I've got 0 so far. So anyway, so I think that's the plan. Yeah, I think that's the plan. And I will save those other challenges for a later date, sometime in March, early March, because some of those challenges end early March. There's that. My before and afters here are going to be at the end of January up until yesterday. So it's not going to include my progress from today. And instead, in my next regular update video, I will do from today through whatever I get done. Either today or to the finish or what have you. Anyway, before and afters, not including today. So that's it for the current works in progress. Let's go ahead and switch and talk about some plans because I've got some fun things coming up. Okay, so like I said, in plans, I've got a couple of things coming up that I'm really kind of excited about. I'm having some serious FOMO with the Long Dog Leap Day sale and the Stitch Rare 2020 sale. And Steel City Stitchers, I saw today, they're doing this bracket March Madness thing, which looks so cool. None of these things are lining up with my already stated plans, and I just am not at the point where I feel like deviating. So I'm going to miss out on all of the things. But I'll watch it all on Instagram, and I'll watch it all on FlossTube, and I'll be super jealous. And yeah, I'm really excited for you guys getting to do all that stuff. And then there's Corks and Stitches Stitch Madness, which Abby has totally enabled all of us to do. Anyway, so here's what I'm doing. I have to maintain excitement about the things that I'm doing. And so on the 29th with Virtual Stitchers, it's the Leap into a New Start, or whatever that style is called. And so for me, I will be starting the next block in Anniversaries of the Heart. This is Valentine Rose. So pretty. I love this one, and I'm very excited to get it started. I have almost all of the called for threads, except for there's a couple that are hard to get a hold of right now. So we'll see how that plays into my progress. The thing is that I'm only going to be able to work on this for one day, the 29th. And so I will hopefully get the top border done so that March 29th I'll be able to start the bonus block that goes here. So anyway, so that is starting on the 29th. Then we get into March. March starts on Sunday. Does anybody else feel like this year is flying? Flying. Yeah. And also crawling at the same time, but maybe that's just with what I've been going through. Okay. So we did WIPCO draws this morning, and I am not going to talk about what the numbers were, but my 2 projects called. I have 5 spaces on my WIPCO board that are in this moment 10K. I have already done 20K, so I was able to mark that complete. But I've decided that when those get called, I'm going to aim for 10K stitches that month. So in March, I'm going to aim for another 10K in this moment. It sounds so big, but it won't get me 2 pages at this point. So it'll get me roughly halfway through the next page. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny. 10K sounds really big, but it doesn't equate to that much. Anyway, And then my other project that was Flowers of the Month by Ellen Moore Stroh. So you'll be seeing a preview here of what this will look like finished in all. My goal for this piece is 5 more flowers, so to get through October. And I'm hoping with this first rotation I can get at least 1 done, and if not done, then the next one started. We'll see. For June, we have the Wild Rose. For July, we have Larkspur. Larkspur is really pretty. I'm looking forward to getting to that. I think that I'm really excited for that because it's blue, and I could go for a different color than what we've had here. So there is that. Next, the other thing that I have to talk about is, in plans, is Emily C's birthday sale. So she's doing a Scarlett House birthday sale, and if it hasn't arrived, if it has arrived, then I may be starting Seeking Refuge. That's one of Scarlett House's new market releases. Everybody's going nuts for it. I wish they weren't, because I went nuts for it and I need it. And I don't like to start something that everybody's doing. So I'm hoping that not everybody's going to start it right away and that I can. If it becomes a situation where everybody's starting it and I feel like I don't really want to do this with everybody, then I'm going to start In a Perfect World. They look very similar. And I love In a Perfect World. It was one of my favorite market releases from last year. And so, this is a win-win situation for me. Seeking Refuge was like I almost cried when I saw that because it just so pertained to my mental status lately. And yeah, so anyway, I'm super geeked about that pattern. Speaking of market, I bought a few things. Not near as much as I wanted to. Animal surgery is not cheap, and so I had to tame myself. So I got a couple of things, and I'm really excited about them. I don't think any of them are market exclusives. I ordered a couple from the Cottage Needle on Etsy, and I ordered a couple from Abby, Top Knot Stitcher. She has a website, which I will link below. I'll also link the Cottage Needle down below, so that y'all can peruse their market release listings. Much fun. So, but I did not go as wild as I wanted to. My cart was hundreds of dollars deep, and I can't. Unless I win the lottery. If I win the lottery in the next 48 hours, different story altogether. Anyway, so I think that's it for plans. In this moment, it's going to get a lengthy rotation so I can get that 10K. And see if I can get a couple more national parks done. So that'll be fun. Okay, let's switch over and talk about stash. This will be quick. Okay, in stash, like I said, I don't have a whole lot. It's really just my monthly things. I am killing it on the Stitch from Stash this year. I have 3 page finishes. I am in the black, in the green, what have you, whatever you want to call it, by a lot. It's a shame that it's just Monopoly money because I could have taken that to the bank and really gone hog wild on the Nashville. But anyway, so all I have right now are my monthly things, and I'm just going to keep on with that and try to curb the spending. I was in my stash the other day looking for Valentine Rose because it got mixed in somehow. There is so much in there that I want to stitch. So much. I don't need to be buying so many new charts. Anyway, so first up we have my nest egg. I get the 5 yard skeins of Gentle Art sampler threads, and we are in the B's and C's. This carrot is gorgeous. Beautiful. I'm not going to go through these individually, but they are beautiful. This is through Trisha at 3 Owl Threads. It is her nest egg. I will link her in the description box below so that you can get to that and join the nest egg if you're interested. I wonder if one of these is what I need. Ugh, I'll look at that some other time. Yeah, love that. Love collecting that. I'm getting fairly close to, in terms of the alphabet, where I started. Because I didn't start quite at the beginning. So, getting close. Okay, up next is my Color and Cotton Fabric of the Month. So I've had mail troubles lately. I had a book that I ordered from the UK. It was my Valentine's Day present that I ordered at the end of January. No idea where that is. No idea. Could be at the bottom of the ocean, for all I know. It is gone. And then my Fabric of the Month, I was so excited. On Monday it said delivered. And I go to my mailbox and it's not there. And I go on Tuesday and it's not there. And I go yesterday and it's not there. And then somebody rang my doorbell 4 times. We won't talk about that and anxiety. But I guess that it was a neighbor who accidentally got my my package. Did I answer the door? No. I did not. We're in prime political season. I'm not interested in answering the door. Anyway, so I guess that my neighbor got my mail and they dropped it off for me. And so I got my fabric. So this is 40 count Newcastle linen. And this is Fabric of the Month through Color and Cotton. And this is Stratus. It is a beautiful kind of washed denim blue color, which you're kind of getting. I always have a hard time with the really rich blues on my camera, but it's, ooh, nope. It's like a really nice kind of washed denim color. It's beautiful. And it's a 40 count, which makes me very happy. Strands of stuff. Anyway, I'm just so excited. I'm glad that it arrived. I was scared. After the debacle with this book that I ordered, yeah, I was a little scared, but it made it. My fabric made it home. Thank goodness for that. So that is it for stash till the Nashville stuff gets here. And so that won't be for a couple of weeks. I am so excited to see everybody's videos from Nashville, and to see what you guys get through your Nashville pre-orders. Nashville's so much fun. These couple of weeks leading up to it are just some of my favorites. I love watching and seeing the new designs that people are coming out with, and it makes me want to win the lottery just that much more. Okay, let's talk about some books, and then we'll go over and talk to Thor. We'll wake him up. I hope you guys have heard him throughout this video. Books next. Okay, here's where the title comes into play. It's ironic that my title is based on books, even though I said this was a cross-stitch channel, but it just worked out. 4 Kings and a City of Dreams. Let's start with City of Dreams. This is like one of my favorite books I've read all year. It will probably stay there as like favorite read. This is City of Dreams by Beverly Swirling. And it's a chunky book. It's a big one. With the deckled page edges. Hello, happy. That just brings me joy. So, this is, technically the full title is City of Dreams, a novel of New Amsterdam and early Manhattan. I'm not entirely sure what they call it, but I am a New Yorkophile. Like, I know that if you're a big lover of Paris, they call you a Francophile. I'm not entirely sure what you call somebody who's in love with New York, but I am in love with New York. I'm pretty sure that I lived there in a past life. Or I'm going to in a future life. Or at some point in this life. I don't know. I love New York. And so this is historical fiction on the city that would become New York City or Manhattan. This is a generational saga spanning from mid-1600s up to just after the Revolutionary War. So late 1700s, early 1800s at the latest. And it's phenomenal. It's so good. It is a generational saga. So what that means is that we essentially follow one bloodline. And so we start with a generation in the mid-1600s, and then it kind of branches out from there, and you follow the family tree. One of the downsides to generational sagas is that, at least from what I've read in the past, is that you get, so in the beginning, we start off with the characters Lucas and, now I can't remember her name. Sally. There we go. Lucas and Sally. So those are the two main characters at the very beginning. Brother and sister. So we get invested in their lives and what's going on, how they are experiencing mid-17th century New Amsterdam, which was little more than just a settlement, a Dutch settlement. And so you get heavily invested in them and you want to see how this stuff goes, and then end new section 75 years later. And so you're like, oh, but I wanted more of their life story. And so you get more of their life story, but through future generations, through their offspring and their grandchildren and whatnot. This is so good, but it is not for the weak of stomach. So one major theme is sort of the advancements in medicine, and more specifically in surgery, in the surgical aspects of medicine. And it starts off with barbers who primarily were responsible for delousing and bleeding and leeching, those kind of procedures. But so starting there and advancing to more in-depth surgical techniques. And this does not shy away from the brutality of that. It also doesn't shy away from the brutality of living in the mid-17th century. It doesn't sugarcoat the tension and violence experienced between New Americans and Native Americans, and also between Americans and New Americans and their black slaves. So the very beginning of the slave trade industry. It sugarcoats none of that. It's very dark in aspects. I found that to be really honest. I kind of like my historical fiction with a little bit more grit. I don't like it so fluffy because it just doesn't feel very honest to me. Living 400 years ago had to be hard, like in ways that I can't really articulate. And so anyway, I absolutely loved this. This is the first in a series by Beverly Swerling. I think she wrote a total of 4 of these, and it spans from 1640s to modern day, all in New York. I'm so here for it, and I can't wait to get back into this. I was recommended this book a couple years ago by Lisa's Stitching and Such. She read this and raved about it, and I was hooked. And this is one of the things that went on my list for this year that I absolutely wanted to get to, because, yeah, I'm just so here for it. So, City of Dreams, 5 stars, easy. I ended up reading this for a Pop Sugar challenge. The Pop Sugar task that I pulled was a book with more than 20 characters in the title. And it didn't say that you can't use subtitles, and since this is kind of a make up your own rules, I included the subtitle. And so I'm pretty sure there are 20 letters in the subtitle, if you include all of that. So that is what I read this for. On top of just pure enjoyment, I was so excited to read it. So I'm going to have to get the next book in the series. And I know that several of you guys, on Instagram have read this. So tell me if you've read the next books in the series, and tell me if they're as good as this one, because I loved this. Loved it. So that's City of Dreams. Okay, I'm gonna lump the next 3 together because it was a whole trilogy. And I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about what happened because spoilers, obviously. But I read them. I ate these books. Like, the first one took me a while. The second took me a few days. I read the third in less than 36 hours. Yeah. So this is the Bill Hodges trilogy by Stephen King. This goes on the list of some people's favorite Stephen King stories, trilogies, series, ever. It goes on, like, towards the top of those lists for a lot of people. As with every Stephen King novel, it seems to be very polarizing. People either love it and are obsessed, and maybe partially obsessed because they love Stephen King. And then there are people who hate it and bash on it like crazy. The reviews section is a little bit of whiplash between those two polar extremes if you read the reviews on Goodreads. Be careful with that, though, because spoilers, holy moly. So anyway, so this is the Bill Hodges trilogy. It starts off as your basic crime thriller novel. And I'm talking about the first, which is Mr. Mercedes. So it starts off as this basic crime novel. We have this horrific event where a madman kills a bunch of people. We have a retired cop who is a problematic character from the jump and is sort of pulled back into the fray to try to solve what happened when this madman killed all these people. So, like, from the beginning, it's very anti-Stephen King. Like, it's just kind of opposite of anything you might expect Stephen King to do. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. I liked that it was different from what I've ever read or seen of Stephen King's works. And it's typical Stephen King, a little misogynistic. He doesn't seem to like women very much. Let's see. A little edge of your seat. Dark and twisty, especially the bad guy. You get inside the bad guy's head, especially in Mr. Mercedes. You get inside his head, which is one of my favorite things about thriller novels. The unfortunate thing for Mr. Mercedes, and it's why it took me so long to read it, is that it is so freaking racist that I wanted to chuck my phone across the room, and then I thought better of it. There are myriad ways of authors getting you to hate their bad guy. Why? With all of these words at our disposal, do we have to use those words? Why? It's not like it's something that advanced your understanding of the character. So I definitely did not like the first book as much as the later books in the series. I contemplated not continuing the series because I was so frustrated listening to that. I did listen to these on audio, so there's that. But I was just so frustrated hearing that word over and over again. Over and over and over again. Ugh. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. I think it's a cheap and just stupid. For lack of better words. I don't have the words. Stephen King has been writing for longer than my mother has been alive. Like, he should be able to come up with better words. But I did continue with the series. The second book is very different in that Bill Hodges, so this is the retired cop, he doesn't really enter the book until halfway through. So that's kind of interesting. It's a different take on it. And then book three is, it's like Stephen King started out this series and he wanted so badly to write just your run-of-the-mill thriller crime series. And he couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. And so book 3 is Stephen King going, okay, fine, I will do what I normally do. And things get a little supernatural. Okay. So book 1, 2.5 or 3 stars. 2.5, I think. Book 2, 3.5 stars. Book 3, 4 stars. Really liked book 3. I liked the way that kind of closed out the trilogy. And yeah, I enjoyed it. Still had some issues. I have an issue with every Stephen King novel that I've ever read, and that is that they are unnecessarily longer than they should be. That may just be me, but I just feel like he could have carved off 100 pages of nonsense. Just useless information. And not red herring, but useless information. Anyway, so I read that series. So then I read The Outsider, which is loosely connected to, but is not a continuation of the Bill Hodges trilogy. These are separate. Bill Hodges is in Ohio. The Outsider is in Oklahoma or Georgia if you're watching the HBO show. Which is why I read this. It's why I read all of this. The Outsider I knew was coming out this year. I didn't think it was coming out until later. And so I thought I had some time. And then it started up early January, mid-January. And so Danny and I really wanted to watch the show. But I've got to read the book first. I've got to have a backstory. I have to be able to pick out where they did things wrong. And so I had to read the book first. And in order to read The Outsider, I wanted to read Bill Hodges because I wanted to know how they synced up. I'm here to tell you, we've watched 3 episodes of The Outsider, and I think it would almost be better if you didn't read the book first. If you're interested in watching the show, go for it. Because they deviate quite a bit. And having read the book, you know how it's going to end. So they're not exactly the same. And you already know how it's going to end. So, like some of the mystery aspect of it is kind of lost because I know how the book ends. Anyway, so just putting that out there. So that's the whole reason I read all of this. The Outsider, again, it's kind of two-faced. So the first half of the book is this, it's crime thriller. Not so much, more procedural than crime thriller. Because at the opening of The Outsider, the main character, who is a detective, he makes the arrest for the crime that has happened. Heads up, very violent against children in The Outsider. Heads up. So we have the main character in The Outsider, Ralph Anderson, detective, makes this arrest for what they think is a lock and key kind of a case. Like, this guy did this. It's a done deal. We have credible witnesses. We have fingerprints. We're waiting on DNA. So they make a very public arrest. And then they start to get conflicting information. Halfway through the book, it takes a supernatural turn. Which is kind of a Stephen King special, right? So it is very kind of two-faced. You almost get a little bit of whiplash. Like, where did that come from? But then it all kind of meshes together. This book is near 600 pages, and it suffers from, could have carved out 150 pages of this thing, and you still would have gotten the gist of it. However, in some aspects of The Outsider, and I didn't feel this for Bill Hodges' trilogy, but for some aspects of The Outsider, those extra pages really hyped up the tension. I don't know if it's because I ate this book too. I think I read it in 3 days. 600 pages in 3 days. Roughly 19 hours of audiobook. but those extra pages really hyped up the tension. And like my heart was racing a little bit. I was a little on the edge of my seat. I was a little putting my needle down and stopping to listen until some aspect resolved itself. So that was pretty good. That was pretty cool. Yeah, it gets dark. It gets really dark, and it's twisty. And until you get to the end, you're really not sure how it's going to end. And Holly Gibney is one of my favorite characters ever. I love her dearly. She's very different in the books than she is in the show. Very different. Arguably one of my most disappointing feelings about the show, but c'est la vie. So I read 4 Stephen King books this month, which I think is more Stephen King books than I have ever read. I read Carrie. I think that's it. I think that's all the Stephen King that I've read. I've watched most of the Stephen King movies, but yeah, I think that's the only one that I've read. Anyway, so, and I think I rated Outsider 4 stars, something to that effect. So I failed my Pop Sugar Challenge draws for February, like just totally failed. I read 5 books this month, which is awesome, and none of them were Pop Sugar for February. City of Dreams was Pop Sugar for January, so failed. So I put them all back and drew 4 new ones to try again in March. I may not be able to get the whole challenge done this year, having missed a whole month's worth, but whatever, we'll try. We'll give it a try. So anyway, so that's where I'm at with reading. I did start Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, but I haven't finished that, and I'm actually going to try to finish that in March because it reaches a reading challenge that I've got going on in March. So, okay, I think that's it for the books. So let's go talk to Thor. Let me give you guys an update on what all went down with Thor. Okay, guys, welcome to my living room. As you can see, Thor is in his spot, and he's wondering what I'm doing here. Tongue out and all. How you doing, Bowie? How you doing? You having a nap? Yeah. So, here's what happened. Quick run through. In August, we took him to a local boarding kennel while we went up to New Jersey. And about a month later, Thor started developing this funny little cough thing where he would heave and then eventually cough, and it was usually a productive cough. And I remember getting an email from the boarding kennel saying, hey, just keep an eye on your pets. We had a confirmed case of kennel cough. And so we thought that that's what this was. We thought this was kennel cough. And with him being a bulldog, like, respiratory issues are a thing. So this wasn't exactly a surprise. If a dog had kennel cough, then more than likely Thor was going to get kennel cough. So fast forward, it doesn't get any better. And so we decided to go to the vet. We had some antibiotics in hand from his last bout of kennel cough, and so it wasn't improving anything. So we go to the vet. They do an x-ray, and there appears to be something in his lungs. And so the vet was fairly confident that we had some bronchitis, which is not exactly surprising either because he's a bulldog. And kennel cough, it can lead to some level of bronchitis, especially with a shortened respiratory system like his. That short snout really causes some problems. So bronchitis. So we do another round of We do another round of antibiotics and some cough suppressants to try to help that get better. It seems to for a little while, and then it just ramps back up again. And we're like, what the heck is going on? So we go back to the vet to do a follow-up x-ray to make sure that whatever they saw in his lungs, to make sure that it moved. Because if it didn't, then we were thinking maybe more like lung cancer. Well, it did. It moved. And so we sent that off for advanced radiology, and basically everybody concluded that it was pneumonia at this point, probably pneumonia at this point. Now, at the time, Thor was on an anti-allergy medicine that they don't really recommend you take for too long, but it worked really well for him. He's got itchy spots. His face and his hind end and his sides there, he gets really itchy. And he gets goo in all of his folds, and this allergy med that we were on was really effective for that. Unfortunately, it has a habit of being an immunosuppressant. And so we think that what may have happened is he went to this local kennel. He was immunosuppressed by being on this anti-allergy, and we were continuing to give him this anti-allergy throughout this whole process. So his system was being compromised, just throughout the whole thing, and so it advanced. On top of the fact, bulldogs have a tendency of respirating when they, if they cough or if they get sick, they end up kind of pulling some back in and respirating it. And so we thought that maybe that was a part of the complication here. So all of this doesn't really explain what happened at the end of January, early February. It does to an extent. So middle of January, keep in mind, he hasn't been on my videos in a long time because when he got excited, he would cough. And it was kind of a violent sound. And so I didn't want to have him jumping and trying to be on video. I wanted him to rest so that he wasn't coughing. So towards the middle of January, things got a little bit worse. And I started to really worry. He would go outside and take the 5 steps downstairs and the 5 steps to go to the bathroom, come back in, and winded as if he had run a 10K. So heavy breathing, like really sucking in air. And so I was really starting to worry that we were looking at some lung cancer. I thought that it was getting to that point. I thought that, they saw this amorphous thing in his lungs on x-ray, and so we were looking at lung cancer. I got really scared. We go to the vet. So my last update video was the day before our vet appointment, to have them have a look at him and figure out what the heck is going on. He was having a really hard time catching his breath. He was lethargic in a way that I think I may have missed because he's a bulldog. And so his natural is sleeping 23 out of 24 hours a day. So I think I missed the lethargy because of that. And I also think that I was clouded by this lung issue. So what I didn't notice was the actual real scary aspect of what was going on. We get him to the vet, and immediately they know that something is up. We get him on the scale, and he had lost 18 pounds in 4 months, which is a lot. He was under 50 pounds. I don't know why I'm getting emotional here, but here we go. He was under 50 pounds, and immediately they looked at him and they knew that something was really wrong. He was so anemic that his his gums. So if I were to pick up his lip here, you can see it's kind of pinky. It was white. White as bone. White. His eyes were white. We thought that his allergies seemed to be getting better because he wasn't scratching. He wasn't itchy. He wasn't getting goopy. So we thought his allergies were just getting better on their own, which is ridiculous. But it was just because he didn't have enough blood for any of it to be consequential for him. And that's why he was having a hard time breathing, walking in and out of the house. Because his lungs, he was trying really hard to get enough oxygen in order to be able to function. And he just did not have the red blood cells to be able to transport oxygen throughout his body. When they did his blood counts, they were through the floor. Like maybe should not have still been here on this planet at that point, so low. Really, really scary low. So they go over everything, and the vet comes back to us and basically tells us that he thinks it's what's known as IMHA. They don't necessarily know what causes it, but it is an immunomediated hemolytic, I can't remember what the A stands for, autoimmune disorder maybe? Basically, his own immune system is destroying his red blood cells. And so we had reached such a critical moment. His body wasn't producing enough red blood cells to make up for the amount that it was destroying. And so he was losing blood literally just by the minute. So IMHA, it is a treatable disorder with regular blood transfusions. And so we were looking at $8,000 to $10,000, and that was just the buy-in. That was just to get this whole process started, to figure out what the heck was going on. The thing about IMHA is that it can be cancer-driven, so there could have been a cancer that then, like a lymphatic cancer, would reroute his immune system to start destroying its own red blood cells. Because my vet, they don't have an ultrasound tech on staff all the time. They have a sort of a come and go ultrasonographer. The only images that they had to work with were x-rays, and that really doesn't give you tissue views. It just gives you really bones. So they couldn't see what was going on in his gut, and they couldn't really see very well what was going on in his lungs, because that really picks up more rib cage than actual lungs. And they couldn't look at any lymph nodes either. So we were looking at $8,000 to $10,000 worth of blood transfusions. And that was just to get us to a point where we could then figure out what was going on from there. And I don't know, like, I was having a hard time because there were so many questions on the other side. There was so much that we didn't know. We didn't know if it was cancer-driven. We didn't know if it was just something that happened, which happens in bulldogs, by the way. We didn't know if... We just didn't know. We didn't know what the heck was going on. And so we took him home after that, so that we could have a couple more days to spend with him. So then we made the determination that we wanted to have an ultrasound done. We wanted to do an ultrasound to at least answer what's going on, because if we made the decision to let him go peacefully without knowing, that would haunt us for the rest of our lives. So we wanted to do the ultrasound, but the only way that he was going to survive long enough for an ultrasound was to get him some blood. He needed something because his body was starting to shut down. He was starting to shut down. So we had to get him a blood transfusion. So we went to, my vet doesn't do blood typing. So we went to the local emergency vet here, and they blood typed him and got him set up for a blood transfusion. And apparently a part of the IMHA treatment plan are some steroids to try to kickstart your immune system to start his immune system to start functioning normally, and to stop destroying his own red blood cells. So we drop him off Thursday night. The plan was that my vet was going to have their ultrasonographer in on Friday. And so we were going to pick him up Friday morning and take him up to have his ultrasound done. So, okay, so I'm trying to remember. Okay, so we leave him at the emergency vet. We're at home for maybe an hour when I get a phone call from the vet there. She's a criticalist. So her job is essentially emergency room veterinary medicine. And she was the one taking responsibility for getting his blood transfusion and getting his steroids started. So she gives me a call, and she says that a part of their procedure in starting these blood transfusions and the IMHA is to just do a very basic ultrasound to just peek, see that nothing is super enlarged or super inflamed. They don't make any diagnoses based on this, but just to make sure that at least everything's in there. And she said that immediately she noticed something. There was something in his gut. And she said, I'll be honest, I'm not really a trained ultrasonographer, and so it could be his kidney. It could be his kidney, or it could be a mass. I can't say for certain. She said, but at this point, I don't want to start steroids, because steroids plus cancer equals humongo cancer, right? That is like superfood for cancer. And so until we had the answer of whether that was cancer or not, if it was just a kidney, then go ahead and start the steroids. But she wanted to give him the transfusion, but not the steroids, not the medicines to treat IMHA. And I will forever be thankful for her for that sort of conservative approach a little bit. Because what transpired is it was a cancer. So we pick him up Friday morning, rush him up to the ultrasonographer at my vet. They actually had to finish the blood transfusion there, but that's okay. So it was like a Red Bull. It gave him a little bit of life. And so they do the ultrasound, and they find a mass on his intestine, on his upper GI tract. From what the ultrasonographer said, she said that there appears to be really good, clean margins on either side. That it was here, and there was good intestine here, there was good intestine here, and over here. My vet was very confident that he could get it out easily. There were still questions on the other side. Okay, so we get this tumor out. Then what? Do we still have IMHA? Do we still have 4, 5, 6 blood transfusions. Afterwards, do we still have lifelong steroid treatments? Keep in mind, he's 7.5 years old. English Bulldog. Their lifespan is typically 10 to 15 years tops. And so lifelong, potentially blood transfusions and IV medications, and I just didn't know what that would mean for the rest of his life. 2 years is an awful lot of, like, 2 years sounds like a long time, but then it also sounds like that's a very short amount of time. So I wrestled with this. I just didn't know what was on the other side. Too many questions, too many unanswerables. Too much I just didn't know and understand. And to this day, I don't fully understand. But, like I said, my vet was really confident that he could get it out. And then we'd go from there and see what happens. So we made the decision to go forward with the surgery. And the surgery took place on February 4th, I think. I think it was February 4th. Maybe not. I could be mistaken here. And got it out. Clean margins. Beautiful surgery. They said it went really well. The mass that they removed, carcinoma, spindle cell malignancy, which is it's an aggressive cancer, and it is a cancer that can recur, but it is unlikely to have metastasized, which is kind of amazing when you think about it all. I won't get into graphic detail. I got a picture of the thing. It looked like a prop from the Alien movie franchise. Not gonna lie. And the mass was about the size of a small orange in his little gut. Whew. So we had surgery recovery after that. That's a pretty invasive surgery. And he was already kind of running on E as far as blood is concerned. So we gave him another blood transfusion, just to beef him up for surgery. Because surgery, not to mention gut surgery, it's an invasive procedure. So he needed a little extra. He needed an energy boost. He needed another Red Bull. So they gave him another Red Bull and they did the surgery and they said that it went beautifully. The other thing is that they found enlarged lymph nodes. And so that just blew up a whole bunch more questions. One of them he was able to remove. The other was too ensnared next to some important blood vessels that he wasn't able to get out. So they had the one that they were able to remove sent off to pathology to check and see if it was cancerous, because an enlarged lymph node, at least as large as it was, could mean a couple of things. One of them is cancer. The other is just an immunoresponse to whatever else his body was going through. But lymph nodes came back clean, no cancer. So, lucky stars, all things considered. So since then, the hardest thing has been, or was, I should say, keeping him on the ground. Dogs are amazing. They are amazing at how quickly they bounce back. You think you or I, if you had 12 inches of your intestine removed, we'd be on bed rest for a long time. And 3 days post-op, he wanted to be jumping on the bed. He wanted to jump off the sofa here. He was feeling pretty good. Oh gosh. And I had to keep him on the ground for 10 days. in our back bedroom that used to be Thor's room, we put a mattress on the floor so that we could sleep with him on the floor, and we alternated nights sleeping on the floor with him, just to make sure that he wasn't tearing any of his either internal or external incisions, to make sure he wasn't trying to lick at it. We have a collar, but Thor does not take well to the collar of shame. Not a fan. Does not do well with that. When he had one as a puppy, he literally rammed his face into a wall to break it so that it would come off of his head. Bulldogs are stubborn, and he hates the cone of shame. So we had to watch him like hawks. Those first couple of weeks, I didn't stitch much. I did a lot of sitting on the sofa and hanging out with him. But that's okay, you know, it was okay. So, since then, since surgery, we have done... Oh, he's sleeping now. Since then, we have done several blood draws and several blood tests. And it would appear that it was the cancer that was eating his red blood cells and not an immunodisorder. Which, y'all, I am over the moon. I'm over the moon to hear. He's still in the low normal ranges of red blood cells, of functioning red blood cells. And so we may add an iron supplement here before too long, just to give him another kickstart. But we're not thinking that he's going to need blood transfusions for the rest of his life. I'm overwhelmed with relief. At our last vet appointment, he was up to 54 pounds. He had gained 5 pounds, which is amazing because he was so skinny. He was so scary skinny. And I'm pretty sure he's gained 5 more since then. He's getting really chunky. His collar is starting to get a little tight, which I'm just so here for. I'm ready for my bulldog to be a big, chunky mess. His allergies are back in full force. It is allergy season, and so all of his stuff is starting to bother him again. And to be honest, I'll take it. Like, I will take it much more than an urn of his ashes on my mantle. Yeah. So we're really, really fortunate and thankful. And also really thankful to you guys, just for your well wishes and your prayers and your thoughts and your fur baby wishes. I felt the love, and I don't know that I necessarily was able to convey it to him, but I felt the love. He did get really annoyed with me because I would give him a hug every time you guys told me to. He did get annoyed with me, but anyway. So I think that's up. That's the update. There were a couple of weeks there where it was kind of touch and go. A lot of uncertainty and question marks. Just what on earth? What now? What next? He still has the cough, by the way. The cough is not gone. But we think that it may be an aspirated, I think I said respirated earlier, aspirated gunk in his lungs that's causing him to cough. So that's not gone yet, but it's getting better. He doesn't appear to have any issues with being roughly 12 inches short of intestine. He did for a little while there, but we've corrected that and addressed it. He's on a higher fiber diet now, so all of that stuff is back to normal. Or closer to normal, I should say. Yeah, we're on the up and up here. And so I want to take a second to shout out both the Emergency Veterinary Services in Fredericksburg, Virginia, as well as Pet Center Animal Hospital in Manassas, Virginia. I can't recommend those places more. If you're in the area, they were phenomenal. Just amazing. Pet Center Animal Hospital. My mom is the hospital manager there. And my dogs have been going to Dr. Johnson there at Pet Center for almost 15 years now. So I have a little bit of a history with them. But yeah, I'm just really grateful and thankful for all of the efforts that that people put out for my boy, for my big guy. You ready, Thor? Hey, Thor. Tracy, do you want cheese? Hey, Thor. Do you want cheese? Do you want cheese? Say hi. Who's that? Who's that? You say hi? Who's that guy? What you doing? What you doing? Are you feeling better after all that mess? Yeah. Still itchy. Okay, guys. That's gonna do it for us here. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching. I know this was a long one, but we're just trying to get caught up here. Thank you for your continued support of me and my channel. I hope that you're well. I hope that you're stitching. As always, be kind, and I will see you in the next one.